Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Carl Tidderington, for anybody who doesn't know me, and I have the privilege and pleasure of having with me today Fern Brady, the CEO of Inklings Publishing, and Meg Hafdahl is on her way as we speak. She's having a few technical difficulties, so we will just be sort of killing a bit of time before she gets here. Fern, do you want to take sort of a minute or two just to introduce yourself and Inklings Publishing and give us a little bit of background information?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having us on. Appreciate that. Inklings Publishing is a small press. We are based out of Houston, Texas, and we sort of began our journey in 2013, late 2013, when we had attended a writer's retreat. Myself and several authors from the Houston Writers Guild had put together a writer's retreat, and we came up with such fantastic stories, and we felt like, you know, they needed to be published. And so the idea of Inklings kind of got born there, and we published our first anthology collection of short stories at that point. And we really didn't do much in after that, you know, because we weren't sure what direction it was going to take. And then in late 2014, almost a year later, you know, we really decided that, you know, being a publisher was what we wanted to do. And so we got some capital funding and an investor to put in some cash, which, you know, is very important. Yeah. Yes. And so once we had that in place and we put together a business model and plan, and we started off in 2015, and we launched the second anthology in the eclectic writing series, Eclectically Criminal. And then we met Meg, who will be joining us shortly, and we really loved her work. And so we decided, you know, we would offer her a contract, and we were a little scared of doing it because we are so small, you know, and we are really just getting started. So, but she took a chance on us, and so was born the Twisted Reveries book. And if y'all can see it, you know, it's nicely spooky.
Like that.
And she writes beautiful, suspenseful horror. And she reminded me a lot of Dean Koontz, who is one of my favorite authors.
Wow. And
so I was like, well, you know, we made this collection of 13 stories, and, you know, it was released in October. So we really released those 2 books this year, and we have an incredible lineup coming up for 2016. And we actually released the Smiley Face Platoon, which was my little book. It's a poem, and we did it as a picture book for kids, and so that's how Inklings Children's Division kind of got started. But I mean, we've gotten on a roll. I mean, for having really been in business 1 year, we have sold, you know, an incredible amount, and we're making, you know, pretty much we could cover all our costs at this point.
Fantastic.
So it's pretty good. Yes, we're very happy with the support of the writing community, and you know, we're very active in selling our books, as you know. I mean, we go everywhere we can. You know, we book tables and we sell. So so we're very excited. We're looking forward to 2016 and bringing out new authors and new books.
Fantastic. That's great news. And you know, I always think it's good to have those small presses out there as well as the big ones, because, you know, the small ones kind of keep the big ones honest, and you know, and it's great for readers, because, you know, readers have a diverse choice of books to read, and from authors perhaps they haven't heard of before, and authors, you know, so they're getting a real flavor. So that's really great. And, you know, obviously we're we're really pleased for you and how far Inklings has come so far, and you know, very excited about the future. I know I am particularly, but we won't go into that too much.
Well, we're very glad to have you, you know, with us, and I'm very excited to get the Simmons and Patterson series reissued with us. You know we're working hard, and we sent you a lot of little tweaks to make to the books. I mean, the books are really awesome, so I think they can only get better. And but I'm anxious to read more of them and to get them out there in 2016 and do your book 5. Yeah. And I know we're working on our comic book series.
Yeah.
So, and that's very exciting as well. So
yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna have a great 2016.
Oh, it's gonna be huge, and we're very excited as well. You know, there'll be more about the comics, and there'll be more about Simmons and Patterson on this channel, and you know, it'd be great. And you know, any more Inkling authors that you know come out and get published in 2016 are definitely you know, going to be invited to come and have a chat with us and try to get the word out there more. I reached a lovely milestone the other day of 60 subscribers to my channel and growing every day.
Very good.
Hopefully some of them are going to pick up some books and get reading. I know there's plenty of people out there who are keen readers, so it's just a case of encouraging all where possible. Now, for viewers, if you are at any point throughout this evening interested in purchasing Meg's book, there is a link to the Inklings Publishing's online store in the description box just below. And if you click on that, it'll take you straight to the page and you can purchase it and ship worldwide, I presume?
Yes, pretty much. Anywhere you live, we will get it to you.
Excellent. There you go. That is great service. You cannot beat that. So yeah, so we're very excited about that, and you know, that it's also worth checking out the website as well, isn't it? Because I mean, not only is Meg's book on there, but there's lots of other books on there, including the anthologies, which are well worth picking up and having a read of. They'll certainly on the list for later, or for me, that's for sure, once I'm done with all my writing.
Well, and if you go on our website, actually today I just uploaded the pictures from the party that we had, the book release event for Eclectically Vegas Baby, which is volume 3 of the Eclectic Writing Series. So you can see the beautiful pictures. We had a wonderful venue, and because we found this very eclectic store, which was right up our alley for that particular series, because they're not your usual stories in the Eclectic Writing Series. And so you can see those. If you click on the little button from the home page on the side that's Inklings Children's Division, you'll get a chance to see some of the photos that we took of the event at MD Anderson's Children's Cancer Center. Fantastic. They have a fall festival. And we went out there, we gave away copies to the kids of the Smiley Face Platoon, which is written by Lady Nefari. That's the pen name. And Lady Nefari is from Planet Jorn. And so she was passing by Earth, and she had Jedi escorts. And so they came all dressed up in their Jedi outfits with their lightsabers, and the kids had a great time, and they had a great time, you know, with their performing for them. Yes. Occasionally you may hear some dogs bark. Yes, they like to interject their enthusiasm to the events.
That's fantastic. And I mean, I've seen a lot of the pictures from the different events on Facebook. Now, Inklings Publishing has a Facebook page, and if you're a keen Facebook user as I am, definitely go over there and give them a like. Up with all the latest releases and news and events. You guys are also on Twitter at Inklings
7. Yes, Inklings 7.
Remembered. Okay, so you know, check those out. Of course, I have my own Facebook page for my Simmons and Patterson series, which is Simmons and Patterson, and I have my own Twitter as well, which is Pat1991. And you can, I'm sure you can find links to that somewhere, probably on my phone. So you know, check it out, because there's a wealth of information about what we're doing, and it's very exciting. Also looking forward to the comic book release, Facebook page release as well in January. So there'll be lots going on there as well. So unfortunately, I haven't heard from Meg yet whether her technical problems have been solved yet. If she's updating something, we might not hear for a little bit longer. But
yes, she says she's trying to get in.
Right.
Is the little message she just sent, but I don't know. Technology is wonderful, except that, you know, the first time you use it, you have to try to figure it all out. And,
yeah.
You know, I get it to work.
Unfortunately, I wasn't the best person in the world to help her, so that probably was not best from my part. But anyway, so let me ask you a few questions about the book as you've read it, and we'll hopefully fill the gap until she gets here. So 13 short stories. How short are we talking? Are we talking a couple of pages, a chapter or two?
Well, they're all between 5,000 to 8,000 words. Some of them are actually shorter than that. There's a couple that are like about 3,000 words long. They're not very, very long stories. They're very concise. But the wonderful thing about Meg is she really creates the tension and the suspense in those very small amount of words. You know, when you think about it, I mean, she really takes you into the world of that story, and you can see it, you can feel it, you know, you kind of get to know the character and their fears, and it's a really great great skill, I think, because I know I try to write some small you know, short stories. I've got a couple published here and there, but they're not easy to write, you know.
Not at all. I mean, I know I've tried. I mean, well, I write short stories, but my short stories are sort of 10,000 plus words, and to be able to get all of that detail and absolutely, oh, Meg's here.
Yay!
You gotta stop talking about
it. I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Okay,
well, welcome, Meg. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. We've let Fern do a bit of introduction for Inklings Publishing. Would you like to take a couple of minutes just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Meg Hafdahl. I'm the author of Twisted Reveries. Nice to see everybody. Hi, Fern.
Hey.
Thank you. Oh, yes, Fern has it right there. Wonderful. The cover is just beautiful. I love the cover. Yeah, I'm so excited to be working with Inklings, and I'm just so excited to be here chatting with you guys. So thank you so much. And my dog's barking. I'm going to close the door.
We've had dog interjections in here too.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm sure mine will pipe up in a minute or something. Yeah, fantastic. Well, Meg, thank you so much for joining us. We were just talking about your skills actually as a writer. Fern was saying how marvelous it is that you're able to write such detailed and really engrossing kind of stories in such a short word count.
Oh, thank you.
And I was just saying how much I struggle to do that. So you know.
Oh. Yeah, I think that it is a challenge to speak with as few words as possible. It's something that I strive for and I work on to try to master. I'm trying, so that's great.
No, you've succeeded. You have
thank
succeeded.
you.
Those
Thank
stories
you.
are great.
Oh,
because
thank
you know, you have to have so much precision in language when you're doing short stories, and I think that you do a fantastic job because you take us into that world. I mean, and the characters are very well developed, even though you have very few words. I mean, the person can totally get into the character's mind, and I think that's a great skill.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I think that's why I like short stories, just to read them too. I think when you read a real masterful short story, you are able to really appreciate the language. And I'm somebody, I just love language, and so I think that's why short stories appeal to me. So.
That's fantastic, and I would like to jump in at this point because I mean I'm dyslexic, and so I really struggled with reading and getting motivated to read when I was younger, and so when I started writing my series, I was very much in the mindset that I wanted to encourage people, particularly dyslexics who weren't comfortable with reading, to get into reading. And I would like to just shout out, massively to everybody who likes my books that please check Meg's out as well, because, what Meg has produced is perfect for dyslexic readers, in my opinion. It's short but engrossing. I can't even speak today. It's Friday afternoon. It really grabs you and holds you in and holds that story and interests you. And for you to be able to do that in such a short space that people can actually read it and finish it and feel that sense of achievement and that want to continue to read, I think is just a real gift and to all readers. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's what's fun, and I think the stories in Twisted Reveries, they're all different worlds, they're all different characters, but I think that there's this thread that goes through all of them. So even though you finish the story, I think that you can feel excited that the next one will have perhaps a similar feel or just a similarity. So I'm glad to hear that. That's great.
Fantastic. Now I'm going to be a little bit sort of amateurish here. Could you explain to me what Reveries is or means? Or...
Sure. Reverie is basically like a dream, I think is the rudimentary description of it. But I don't know, I like to think of it as kind of almost a daydream rather than a night dream. Although I write spooky, suspenseful things, and night, of course, is great, but I think that what we're really talking about with the title is really just a riff on, things that may seem unrealistic a little bit, but we have that real character to kind of anchor us into these unrealistic worlds.
Fantastic.
What do you think, Fern?
Well, I think what we were, I think you said it correctly. I mean, Reveries is like a dream, and I always think of like when you say, something snapped you out of your reveries, it's like your mind was wandering in somewhere, and so you're brought back from it. That's kind of what that phrase means. So to me, Reveries is these wanderings. We're wandering along in these landscapes that like Meg says, they all have some kind of element that's horrifically spooky and out of this world, and yet you're totally immersed in it, so you really believe it. You really feel like you could visualize it and as if it was really happening. So I think it's very much a wanderings kind of thing.
Fantastic. I'm absolutely raring to go on this one now. I can't wait to. I mean, I'm definitely not one to watch horror films. I have to be honest. I mean, about as horrifying as it gets is Criminal Minds for me. That's about as scary as I get. I watched Aliens from downstairs while it was playing upstairs. Anyway, but to read something, I think it's going to be different and almost potentially could be scarier. If my mind really goes with what you've created there, it could be a scarier. So I may be hiding after the first story, but.
Then I know I've done my job, Carl.
Yes, well, excellent. I'll write a review at that point. I'm scared, couldn't go any further. So I had a question for you about kind of getting in the mood to write, because as an author myself, I know that unless I'm really in the zone, writing can be a little bit difficult, and perhaps, maybe I don't create my best. So, what do you do to kind of get in that zone?
Well, when I started out, it used to be much more difficult. I used to have to be, basically encapsulated in silence. I had to have a lot of time to think. I'm the type that likes to sit and just stare off. Sometimes I think people at the coffee shop think I'm staring at them, but I'm just, thinking. But now that I am where I am in my career, I don't have the luxury to be in the mood. I have to write. And I have to do it if my 4-year-old is in the room. I have to do it if I have some other crazy stuff going on around me. And I think that's great advice for writers out there is it doesn't matter if you're in the mood or not. Do it anyway. And it's really important to write. Just write. I've been there where I don't want to write. I don't want to do it. I want to be on Facebook. I'll do anything to be distracted. But if you just sit there and you write a sentence, even if it doesn't end up in your story, you're just thinking and putting words on paper, do that. Don't wait till you're in the mood.
Definitely from the publisher's perspective, that makes a lot of sense because, when you're first starting out and you don't have a contract or a publisher or an editor, you have the luxury of writing when you really feel like it, But once you have that production timeline and you have a deadline because you're working towards creating this book, and you have somebody waiting on you to turn that in, that becomes a whole other issue. And I think some authors can struggle with feeling pressure to perform, I think it's hard for some authors. They might even experience a certain degree of writer's block at that point because now they have to perform, on a schedule. Yeah. And so, there's a lot of really great resources that can help you. I know that I really love to keep a writer's notebook, and I just collect, things, mementos, and I just doodle thoughts on there. And it doesn't necessarily always go towards a piece of writing, but just creating that writing kind of lifestyle where you're writing every day. You're always writing will help you, and there's a lot of resources out there with writing prompts that can help spark something, and sometimes you start on the writing prompt and something else comes along, but getting into that daily habit of writing every day, even a few words, even the other day I wrote 5 words, and literally those were the 5 words I wrote. I wrote 5 words, because at least I tried. I was so tired. It had been such a hard day. But, getting into that, I got to write, is very important.
Yeah. I know when when I write, I tend to sit down and I actually put, this is going to sound sad, but I put the Sherlock soundtrack on in the background so I can listen to it because that music, that atmosphere, it creates an atmosphere that is very similar to my book, and so I can very much kind of jump on that, and I have been known, to be fair, when my wife's not at home, to walk around in character and sort of act it out almost to kind of get in my mind what's going to happen. So I'm a little bit weird and out there, but I'm glad I'm among friends. So,
well, actually, I also write to music. Because my favorite pieces to write to are the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit soundtracks, and soundtracks of adventure tales.
Yeah.
Or Alexander Nevsky's The Battle on the Ice. That's so dramatic. Because I feel like my book that I'm writing is so dramatic, and so it inspires me to write out these sword scenes and stuff. So you're not the only one that uses music. It's a good inspiration.
Phew. Makes me feel better now. So Meg, what inspired you to get into writing in the first place? Was it just one day you woke up and thought, I'm going to write, or did you bump your head, or what was it?
I may have bumped my head, but that's another thing. No, I always wanted to be a writer. It's just me. I never thought about doing really anything else. When I was 5, I started making books. I had a series about a bear and a raccoon, and I would write that. And I think it just comes from I absolutely loved books since babyhood, since I could get my hands on them. And so I knew I wanted to write in some capacity, write fiction. And then I got into playwriting for high school, and then I did some in college as well. But I knew that I really wanted to write either short stories or novels or something in that aspect. And then, yeah, I started to do it. I started to really write short stories, and I think college helped me a lot because I read a lot of great short stories. You know, I think that we are exposed to so many novels. Sometimes we forget how great short stories are. So I got really interested in that medium, and so yeah, I wanted to be a writer forever.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, that's great to hear, and what I really like about speaking to different authors is finding out kind of where it all started, because for some people like you, you know, it's right there at the start, you know, as early as you can remember, and for other people, I mean, like myself, it really has only just cropped up in the last couple of years, and having that opportunity. And so I think for a lot of people as well who are interested in getting into writing, it's seeing that there's so many different ways into writing. I think that can be, you know, really kind of inspiring and encouraging to, particularly, you know, new writers, to see that, you know, some people have been doing it for years, some people have just started, some people struggle with it, some people, you know, absolutely fly with it. And I think, I'm sure, Fern, you've seen a lot of different writers on your travels and, you know, at different stages.
Oh, yes. And the most impressive one was, you know, I was at the Girlfriend Weekend with the Pulpwood Queens chapters, book clubs, you know, and it was very interesting because there was this one lady who wrote her first book at, I think she was 70, 80 years old. And, you know, she had spent all her life doing other things and, you know, pursuing a career. And when she retired, she realized that she had these stories in her, and she started writing. So, you know, it just goes to show you're never too old, you know, to start, and you're never too young, you know, because, I mean, I was a teacher for 15 years for 6th grade, and I saw some students whose writing was absolutely fantastic and who loved it, you know. And if I had known a lot more about the industry at that time, I would have encouraged them to try to publish, because it doesn't matter your age. You know, this is one of those things that you can do no matter how old you are.
Yeah, definitely, completely agree. And it, you know, it's so encouraging to see so much quality work out there. You know, I think it's probably the best time to be a reader as it's ever been. You know, because the amount out there for people to get their hands on. So I have a question from some of my students. I was just teaching my college class, and I said to them, you know, if you could ask just one question to an author that I'm going to do an interview, what would you like to ask? So they came up with, where did you get the ideas for your book from?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of ideas come from things that scare me, but also I really like to take aspects of things that I'm going through, or aspects of my personality. I mean, I think all writers can agree that our characters have a little bit of us in them. And I like to kind of take somebody who's going through something that maybe I've gone through or I've watched somebody go through, and I kind of like to marry that with something that I find scary. Something, for instance, that I find scary is when you can't trust your own brain. I find that like terrifying. Like, you know, if you've read The Shining or you've seen The Shining, it's about somebody who starts not be able to trust themselves, right? And they end up hurting the people they love the most. And so that terrifies me, if you can't trust yourself. And I have that in my book, where people can't trust their own judgment. They can't trust what's going on. And that's scarier than somebody coming at you with an axe, I think. If you think you're going to be the one with the axe in your hands, that's really scary. And then, you know, there's just fun stuff too. Like I've discussed before, I really don't like birds. I find them terrifying. And so I have a story in Twisted Reveries called There's Something About Birds, and I really write from a true perspective of how I feel about them. So it's a mix of things in real life, wacky things I might have heard on the news, or I might have, you know, heard somewhere else. I think ideas, you start with something really small and then it turns into a good idea or a bad idea. But all my stories, hopefully in Twisted Reveries, are good ideas.
That's brilliant. I mean, I suppose it ties in with what Fern was saying earlier about having that writer's book, and you know, sometimes it's just see things and put it in, and from what develops out of that is what you come up with, which, you know, is absolutely brilliant. And you know, it is, I find, quite incredible how people are able to do that. You know, there are people out there who have that creative spark about them, like yourself, who are able to take those ideas and to transform them, and you know, the use of language to create something is definitely a skill in itself. So maybe it's a little bit early to be asking this, but what can we expect to see from you in the future?
Well, good question, Carl. I have another book coming out next year that will be Twisted Reveries Volume 2, and that's going to be another 13 stories. And what's exciting about that book, and that will be coming from Inklings Publishing, of course, what's exciting about that book is there's a town that I've established in Twisted Reveries called Willoughby, and it's really a great muse for me. It's based on a real town here in Minnesota, and I think it's a really neat place. There's a lot to explore, and in Twisted Reveries Volume 2, all the stories will be taking place there. So it'll be kind of a more new focus. And then after that, we will be looking forward to my novel, which is going to take place in Willoughby as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Try and mute myself there. Fantastic. Well, I mean, that sounds great, and I have to say I'm a big fan of when, you know, authors or film directors or whoever, you know, in a creative sense, you know, takes an idea and then just starts building off that idea. And it sounds like, you know, for readers, if they get hooked and they really enjoy your first book, then they've got a lot of exciting, you know, further adventures to come. Now, can I just check, Willoughby is a made-up place, is it?
It is. I based it on this little town in Minnesota that I have some ties to, and I'm kind of a big city girl, and I find little tiny towns just fascinating. I think that the whole thing is just the people that live there, that have lived there for generations. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, where you go to a little town and they don't know you and you kind of get the look, you know? So I don't know. I think they're just really neat places, and it's fascinating for me to kind of explore that rural Gothic, that idea that there's an underbelly to these really idyllic, adorable little towns.
That's great. I mean, the current town I'm in, I suppose, certainly small for me. It's got 13,000 people, and that's very small for me.
Yeah.
I come from a small town in England, which has got 85,000 people. So, but yeah, I mean, I just wanted to check whether it was real or not, so I could.
Yes, it's not real. It's not real.
Yeah, good. So I won't need to avoid it because, you know,
no.
I don't like scary places. Fantastic. I think I covered all my questions. Fern, have you got any questions that you wanted to spring on Meg?
Well, I don't know that I have any questions other than, you know, well, I did want to ask her about the story Dust, because that is an interesting take on zombies, and you know, we all love zombies. Well, I mean, some of us love zombies. Some people don't love zombies so much. But those zombies are very interesting, you know, and very different. And I know that you must have gotten the inspiration from somewhere for Dust. So just kind of wondering what that was.
Sure. So I've said before I was really reluctant to write a zombie story because I felt like, oh, you know, it's going to be kind of the same old story. It's going to have the same zombies. And then I was laying in bed one night and I just popped out of bed and I was like, my zombies are going to be different. They're not going to eat our brains, you know, but they're still deadly. And that's where the dust comes in. The zombies in my story have deadly zombie dust on them that you do not want to breathe in. You don't want to be around. But I kind of started from the aspect of, I don't know about you guys, but every time I like watch Walking Dead or anything that happens with post-apocalypse, I'm always like, grab stuff, grab books, grab, you know, like look at all the books, go to the library, you know, like that Twilight Zone episode where he's like, I finally get to read all the books. And so my character really comes from that perspective. You know, she's really, obviously she's had a lot to deal with now that she's living in this new zombie world and she's lost her mother and there's all these things going on, but she really kind of focuses in on stuff. And I think that speaks to a lot of us and how we distract ourselves. And so Dust is a really fun story that I'm really proud of, and I think people who like zombies will appreciate my different take on them.
That's great. I mean, I presume then that they're not all 13 aren't about zombies. So
no.
so what else do you touch on, just for those people who maybe haven't had the chance to read it yet?
Sure. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Well, one of my other favorite stories is called Guts, and it takes place in a hospital, which I think they're just inherently creepy. And that one is kind of, you know, all the strangers are trapped together, which is a great subgenre. I love that. And there's a creature in the hospital, and they're stuck in there, and I absolutely love that story. It's one of my favorite stories that I did. What else? There's obviously a story kind of explaining about Willoughby, what goes on there. There's a story that takes place at a rest stop on the side of the road in North Dakota, as well as one that takes place in an old kind of what I call Bates Motel type place. But they all kind of revolve around a central character that is going through something, and we get to go on the journey with them. There's another great story about a woman who is abducted by a bad man, and she's kind of put in a position where she has to save herself, and she's never really been put in a situation like that before, where she's had to do anything for herself. So yeah, there's just something for everybody.
I really liked also the one called Everly. That one's a little different than the other ones. It really explores a lot of like what happens to a parent who has lost a child, and I think that was a really deep. I mean, I think it really went deep into what can happen to someone, you know, who faces that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think all of our worst fear is losing loved ones, and I'm a mother, and I think about what kind of person would I be if my children were taken from me. You know, what would I have to live for? What would I do? And that character is going through that, and I think I've had great response to that story. So yeah, it was hard to write. It was definitely hard for me to write, but I'm really proud of that one too.
Wow, I mean, that sounds like a real collection, and I have to say, I'm itching even more to get and reading it, and I have to say, I mean, that might not sound like much of a compliment, but I mean, it really is, because for me to get interested enough in a book to want to pick it up and read it, it doesn't happen very often. I barely pick my own books up now.
I hear you.
So that sounds fantastic, and presumably, I think you sort of alluded to that each story has a different main character.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So it's not some unlucky poor person that keeps getting into the situation.
Yeah. No. It's not somebody having a really bad day.
We're here.
So now I'm guessing then, being able to sort of write these stories, you had the opportunity to perhaps solve some of the issues that you may see? I mean, so for example, my wife and I watch Criminal Minds each week, and every week that the victim is in a sort of a situation, and you know, we'll be screaming at the TV, go on, pick that up and hit them, or something like that, and it's very frustrating to watch them run away, you know, or do something wrong. Did you find that you kind of had the opportunity then to write them to do the thing that you would want them to do, rather than what the, you know, screenplays say?
You know, wow, that's a good question. I think there's obviously a cathartic experience when you write something like that, because you do get to kind of be this person who you know, beats the bad guy sometimes. But it's really important to me to write characters that are complicated and real, and we don't always handle everything perfectly. We don't always know what to do. We don't always know we shouldn't run up the stairs. So I really, and I think every writer can agree, the character becomes their own person, and I'm just there as the, you know, the middleman. I'm helping that character through their story, and it doesn't always necessarily end the way I think it's going to end. It's very important to me. When I write a story, I don't know usually how it's going to end, because that's not fun for me. I don't like planning it out. I like kind of writing by the seat of my pants. So yeah, sometimes the characters, I'm really proud of them, and then other characters, it's like, why did you do that? But
that's great, and it's really interesting that you said that, because so many authors that I've heard speak over the years have said, well, you know, the story just kind of wrote itself. And when I first started out, I thought, well, that's not possible. I mean, logically, that just doesn't make sense, because you know, it's the author that's putting the words on the page. And so, you know, therefore, surely it doesn't write itself, the author writes it. Well, when I wrote my first book, I was actually amazed that some of the chapters actually wrote themselves. You know, I started off with this idea, and then it said, no, we're going this way.
yeah,
and it's so refreshing to hear that I haven't gone insane, and that it happens as well. So, thank you very much for that.
You're good. No, it's true that, you know, it really, that's what's exciting for me. If I wrote from the aspect of perfectly outlined, and this is going to happen here, this is going to happen here, I just don't think I would enjoy myself very much, and I don't think the reader would enjoy themselves as much, because I think they can tell if a story is going an organic direction or if it's being forced.
And you know, that kind of brings up a very good point, in that, you know, there's certain genres that lend themselves to being very formulaic, you know, and there's a lot of authors that put out a lot of, you know, they put out a lot of books, but all of the books seem very similar. They're very formula, you know, and they're not as exciting. You know, they're good, they're enjoyable, but you know, they're not exciting. And you know, the whole idea of like for example, in my own writing, I like to have an outline. I do outline, but I have found the same thing happens, in that along the way my characters start doing their own thing. And you know, even recently I've been doing NaNoWriMo. This is the month, you know, for that, and I sat down to write a scene, and I thought, you know, I'm going to make them get angry at each other so I can build some tension here. And they ended up having this heart-to-heart discussion and getting to know each other so much better, and came to a truce. And I'm like, what are you people doing? This isn't where I wanted you to go. But it can happen, and I think you have to be open, even if you're like me that likes to outline, you have to be open to letting the story go where it needs to go and not force it. You know, and not follow those formulas, because I think, you know, it makes good books, but if you want to make great books, you've got to let it flow naturally.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the amount of times that I've sat down to write a chapter, and I've got into the dialogue of it, and the dialogue almost, you want to take it one way, and you just think, well, no, that's not how it would go. You know, it doesn't feel like it should go that way, and then all of a sudden you've got a different dialogue going off in a different direction, and the story becomes so much better, I think. You know, I've very rarely had a situation where letting it go its own way has ever caused a big issue. So, yeah, I think, yeah, perhaps for aspiring writers out there, maybe that's a hit, you know, a good little tip there, just to let your writing go its own way. To
I think so.
enjoy it. I think, Meg, you know, you made a really good point about enjoying your work. I know when I write, although I hated writing at school, you know, writing now is just so much different than that. It's relaxing, it's enjoyable, it's something to get excited about. I mean, well, Fern knows how excited I've been about my writing of late, and you know, I'm like a schoolboy waiting for, you know, Christmas or something. But yeah, I mean,
isn't that so sad, Carl? Isn't it sad? It's tragic to me that kids, you know, in school are made to write very formulaic and very, very contrived, and aren't taught that writing is something very enjoyable. That it is a very therapeutic activity, and that, you know, I mean, so many of our kids, I know in the school that I taught, you know, they were going through some tough things, and letting them write every day just some thoughts, some feelings, was very helpful to them. And a lot of teachers don't do it in a way that is natural. It's very contrived in school, you know. And it's tragic to me that people have their love of writing is kind of destroyed. You know, school sort of destroys your love of writing, and then you kind of rediscover it later.
Yeah.
It's just so sad.
And this, I think, you know, further to that, what's really sad is that some people don't ever rediscover writing. You know, and I think it's an art. You know, writing is an art, and you know, artists go out there and they do their paintings or their sculpting, and they do what comes from within, or, you know, and it's natural, and there's no sort of barriers. I mean, I think it's very liberating from that point of view, because what you put down is whatever you want, you know, and you haven't got somebody over you saying, well, you know, you can't write that, and you must, you know, actually this paragraph should go before that paragraph. You know, it's what it is, and it's what you want it to be, and I think that's what attracts so many people to it. And I completely agree with you, Fern. I think, you know, it is really tragic that, you know, so many school kids go to school, and when it's, you know, it's English class, and then, oh, today we're going to do creative writing, but it's not creative writing because I want you to do this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? One of my friends from England, actually, that I think might be watching right now, her little daughter, every time that, you know, they're about, she's like, oh, what story are you writing today? And, you know, her little girl's almost, you know, writing a different story every day, and I think that's fantastic. And the opportunity to sort of allow her to just be free and be creative like that, you know, it will work wonders, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So, Meg, I mean, you say you're at the stage in your career now where, you know, you can't sort of have a day off where, you know, because you couldn't write. So how much do you write? I mean, is it a sort of 8 hours a day job, or?
No. I mean, Fern's watching, so I'm gonna say yes. No, I mean, I think like everybody, it has to fit into your life. You know, I still have a child at home, so I have to consider that. And so sometimes, you know, in the evenings I'm writing. After dinner, that's my writing time. Or, you know, when he's at preschool, then I do my writing. You know, it's about fitting it in when I can. Thankfully, I have a really supportive husband that you know, understands what I'm trying to do, and that this is important for me. And I have great parents that, you know, watch both kids for me when I need them to. And so it's right now it's not a 9 to 5 punch-in type of thing, but you know, both my kids will be in full-time school next year, and then I kind of see it more as being a 9-to-5 type job. But right now, it ebbs and flows into whatever I can fit it into. But it's definitely a big, huge priority. So I think if it's important to you, you will make it a priority.
Fantastic. Well, I agree. I mean, I have to work, unfortunately, for a living, so I haven't got that 9-to-5 ideal writing job yet. I mean, hopefully one day.
There you go.
But the thing I find is, you know, maybe one evening I'll sit down and I'll get writing, and I think, well, I'll set this hour aside, and the next thing I know, it's 3 hours later, and
Exactly.
I'm away, and you know, I'm enjoying it so much, and my wife's saying, "Are you coming to bed?" I'm saying, "Well, you know, a couple more paragraphs, you know." And so, but you know, and it's good to hear that that you're able to find time and fit that in, because clearly that is important to you, and clearly we're going to hear more from Meg Hafdahl in the future. I feel, it certainly sounds that way.
I'm working on.
So, have you got any events that you're coming up soon that you're going to be at that perhaps we just want to let people know?
Sure. Well, tomorrow I'm traveling a couple hours away from. I live in southern Minnesota. I'm driving up to northern Minnesota, and I'm going to be at a local authors event in Duluth, Minnesota, at the library, which I'm really excited about. I lived in Duluth, and I was thinking today how I used to take books out of that library, and I used to play Oregon Trail on the computer, and so it's kind of cool to think how I'll be there tomorrow signing books and selling books. So I'll be there from 11 to 2 if anybody happens to be watching from Duluth, Minnesota. And so that's kind of the most recent thing, and there'll be other things here in Minnesota, and I'll be down in Texas in a few months as well. So people can go to my website, meghafdahl.com, and keep up, or on Facebook. They can follow my Facebook author page, and that I'll have my events on there.
Fantastic. And what we'll do once we've gone off air, we'll grab the details for the Facebook page and your website, and we'll put those in the description box, which will be below, along with the Inklings online store, so that if you're interested in buying Meg's book, you can go click on that, and we can get that ordered and on its way to you. So that's been great, and I haven't really got any other questions for you, Meg. I don't know whether Fern's got some hidden up her sleeve. She had a good one earlier, so maybe she's got another.
Well, I think, one of the key things that Meg mentioned is about her husband, and I know, Carl, you have a very supportive wife as well in your writing career. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that aspect of it, because, a lot of people may have the dream to write, but I know that there's also the other side of the coin of people telling authors, well, you have to be realistic and pragmatic. You're not going to make money. You're going to be a starving artist, get a real job. And, I know that happened to me, I was like, well, that's kind of why I became a teacher, because I was like, well, I may not make it as an author in terms of actually being able to feed myself, and when I got married and I had a supportive spouse, it was when Inklings could be born, so I think that aspect of it is very important, and having that support, the people that believe in you and that encourage you, is very important. So I just want to say, a shout out to Luke, because he's awesome. He is just so awesome. And to JJ, because I know that she is just awesome with you as well. So it's really great to have that support, And
we should probably give a shout out to Mike as well, because he's probably working hard away there in the background.
He's at the 9 to 5, paying the bills. But it's a good thing, because it's a team effort, and writing is actually a team effort. Which I think people think of it as a very lone wolf kind of career, and yet it is very much about the support system you have, about the writers community, and having that support is very important.
Definitely. And speaking of support groups, you know, obviously we can mention the Houston Writers Guild for anybody, you know, that may be watching this at a later time from Houston who is interested in writing. You know, well worth going and checking out their Facebook page. And going to the events and just speaking to them, because they're a great group of writers from what I've heard, and you know, more than willing to welcome people in and help and encourage, and you guys do workshops as well, don't you, and different events like that, so that's great. Meg, I just wanted to quickly ask you, in terms of the support, how does your children, I mean, are they part of that support team? Do they kind of inspire you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think every person wants the people in their life to be proud of them. And I really want my children to go, wow, Mom did it. Mom worked really hard, and she achieved her dream. And so that's definitely in the back of my head all the time. They're little still, you know, they don't read my scary stories. But they appreciate that I'm doing what makes me happy, and that makes me a better mom, and because I feel fulfilled. And you know, I really urge everybody out there, even if you do have little small children, do something that's going to make them proud, which is doing what's right for you and what you love and what your dream is. That's how they're going to respect you and love you and see who you are, you know.
Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I guess, I mean, it's been absolutely great talking to you, Meg, and Fern as well, obviously. Just very quickly before we finish, just a reminder to people watching that you can catch up with Meg on a Facebook page and a website that are both going to be on in the description box below. There's Inklings Publishing, Facebook page, Twitter, the website. Yeah, we're getting to twisted.
Wait, I'll get mine.
Nope. Now I'm just going to hold my hands up.
Yeah. Photoshop one into your.
Yeah. We'll add that on later. Obviously, you know, check out Inklings Publishing, the website and the online store if you're interested in buying it. It is currently $15.
Yes.
Which
$15
works out roughly around £10 or something close to that. But a real bargain, whatever country you're in, and a fantastic read. And thank you ever so much, Meg, for coming on and chatting with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to finally meet face to face. Although,
yes. Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
No worries. So a big thanks to Meg, and a huge thanks to Fern Brady, not only for being here today, but taking on this wonderful lady, an author, and getting that book out and published so that the readers of the world can be further enlightened and hopefully not too scared.
Thank you, Carl, for this. You know, we had a great time with you, and I know I'm looking forward to coming back on at 7, right, for our second meeting, and very exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, just for anybody who's watching who wants a double dose of Meg today, which, you know, who wouldn't, we'll be on 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is GMT +6, and we'll be chatting again to Meg and finding out a bit more about her and what she maybe's got more plans for the future, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon on another author's interview. Take care. Bye.
Bye.